Hey everybody, it is Sunday evening and we are back once again. The lounge is open, the fire is stoked. We got all kinds of soda and juices and even some other drinks if you really want them. And a whole bunch of comfy chairs. Come on in, take a seat and let's chat TTRPGs. What do you say?
I say we're going to talk about TTRPGs.
You sound so enthused.
This is my enthusiastic voice. It's been a rough afternoon. So, I hope everybody's having a wonderful day. I'm Joanne Wallace, the Angel of Angel Citadel. Um, yeah.
And I'm Josh Wallace, the other half of Angel Citadel. And together we form this like giant robot thing that is Angels. I mean, no, we don't. Voltron style or whatever.
Uber, Voltron. Dun, dun, dun.
So yeah, we're gonna spend tonight trying not to cough on you and choke down drinks or whatever, and talking about TTRPGs. What are we talking about tonight, huh?
Player characters.
All right, let's talk about player characters.
So I figure what we're going to talk about tonight, since you suggested it, was we will talk some about motivation in TTRPGs, what motivates us to play, what motivates the player characters to play, and talk about creating characters as part of a party and avoiding the whole loner brooder bullshit.
Sounds great. Let's get started. So motivation in TTRPGs. Um, Setting the way back clock to way back. Um, there was a role playing game called Dungeons and Dragons. It's been around for a long time. You may have heard of it, and if you haven't, you're not missing much. But I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. That's horrible. um, the original Dungeons and Dragons was set up so that it was very much it's very much like its namesake, right? Dungeons. So you go into a dungeon and you fight monsters or big bad evil guys or girls or whatever, and um the act of combat was what gave you experience. Each entry in a monster manual or whatever gave you a specific amount of experience for a given monster, right? You did the math, and then when you hit the level total, you leveled up, and that's how things were. You loot their bodies, and that's how you get treasure, and you keep track of your gold pieces, and maybe you go back to town, you buy a few things, but all the really cool shit, the magic items and stuff, was all buried 3 or 4 levels deep in a dungeon somewhere that some lich was holding it, hostage because they have all the cool stuff, and all the townspeople just have these stupid wooden swords and crappy
Loot drops.
definitely loot drops. And then you had people decide that that was maybe not the only way that you could do that sort of thing. Even Dungeons and Dragons started shifting their thought process and including optional rules and things like that did like what milestone advancement is what they call it now.
Yep.
But a lot of other RPGs don't necessarily do that. You kill the thing, you get X experience or whatever. And it. I'll go and I'll say it. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Um, the real linchpin for me was picking up a copy of Numenera. And if you read the GM section in Numenera, it's very explicit. It comes out and he talks about that design philosophy Monty Cook does. And he says, reward what you want to see in your games. And I'd never really thought about GMing in those terms, but that started a mindset shift for me. And so when concepts like a session zero or whatever come along, that discussion, that option of, okay, I don't have to figure out, mathematically balanced combat anymore. I can look at other ways of motivating my players to do things and have them receive rewards for it. That whole thought process came around and it was like, hey, this is kind of cool.
Well, yeah, but it's also more than just, rewarding only what you see in the games. It's also about talking with your players and seeing what they want. So when I'm talking about motivating the player characters, I'm not just talking about motivating the players to play, right? Because in my mind, if the player is sitting at your table, they're there to play. That's why they're there. That's why they're not at home playing video games or sitting at somebody else's table. They're there to play with you. It's what's going to motivate the player character. That's the PC, that's this little minion or whatever you want to call it that they've created in this world. So, what's going to motivate them? And part of that, it does come up in session zero
Mm-hmm.
with discussions of what kind of game you want to play. But part of it's also part of the backstory. For example, one of the big pieces of the backstory in the Shadowrun game, the dude wrote like 300 pages. I'm not saying you have to have it, but it was a lot. But his main motivation, his character's motivation, was to discover what happened to cause him to lose his memory.
Yeah, it was 114 pages, not 300, but that's still ridiculous amounts of backstory. Please don't feel like you have to write your GM that kind of backstory.
You haven't seen his latest presentation.
No, I haven't seen his latest presentation. I remember the one he sent us first.
Yeah, it's up to 300 pages now.
Jeez.
And still horrifying with grammar. But let's not go there. So again, when it comes to motivating the player characters, you need to take into account their backstory. Um, Assuming that they have one. If it's a one shot, then it's not as big of a deal. I'm talking more with campaigns. With campaigns, you want to incorporate not only the story you want to tell as the GM, but the story they want to tell as the player. And that can vary. For example, in Josh's Invisible Sun game, my character, Claire, is very focused on bringing back entertainment from pre war in Invisible Sun. Whereas another player's character is trying to figure out why he has no memories of pre war, why he only knows the shadow and then ended up in Invisible Sun. Whereas another wants to become what? The greatest alchemist to ever live?
He wants to create the Philosopher's Stone. And so the thing about that one is it's not so much of following a recipe or anything like that, because I thought about it and was like, I could do that, and you could run around and collect reagents and stuff like that. But I want to make this a little more interesting. So he's got to figure out what a philosopher's stone actually is, and does everybody that's tried to understand it before actually have the right idea or not?
So the greatest alchemist to ever live.
Or something, yeah.
Well, Well, think about it, okay? If he actually is successful in creating this Philosopher's Stone, his name will go down in history.
Assuming anybody knows he didn't.
Well, you're the one who had the thaw race chasing us around. So just saying. He laughs, but it's true. Burning down my theater and everything.
Hey, you found Herbie, and it's a TARDIS Herbie.
But yeah, so when it comes to player character motivation, not necessarily player motivation, but player character motivation, you want to incorporate what they want to do, which is also why we also advocate really big on the whole character bonds and the character arcs, because while D&D is awesome, and it is,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't actually incorporate ways it didn't actually incorporate ways for your players to get to know each other. They've included it some in 5th edition with the whole backgrounds, right? You've got the backgrounds that give you the skills and the abilities so that you can work in how you know each other based on your background. But in a lot of cases, it's you meet in a bar or a tavern or jail or.
Well, that there are even other contemporary games that do it way better. Take the Shadowrun Life Path example, or take Traveler. You get so much more meat to hook onto. So if you're one of the other players in the party or whatever, um, if you've got two or three other people, they don't have to connect to the same point in the story, right? They don't all have to be in that same bar to do um, that connection. One could be, if we're talking Traveler, one could be somebody that went to college with you, and another guy could be somebody that you served in the Navy with, and then a third could be somebody that you met when you got out of the Navy and started working for a corporation. And then you all end up meeting together, and you've got those shared connections somehow, right? So there's just more, and that's one of the things that I've liked about branching out into other games, was to see that there were other ways to do it. Because I was a big, okay, you meet in a tavern kind of a guy. That's all I knew, and I think that's all a lot of people know.
Well, I mean, logistically, if you look at it from a fantasy standpoint, it makes sense. What's the first thing most people do?
You go to a tavern and you find a place to stay for the night.
I mean, and in some cases, if you take the uh, old timey, a lot of times you had your tavern and your church were side by side.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a cleric going to the church, it's going to be right next to the tavern. So it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess even then you've got um, a little bit of an expansion, and it was made popular with Pathfinder, right? So you've got the Pathfinder Society, um,
Mm-hmm.
and that seemed to bring about, I don't know, I guess people using some form of adventurers guild or something like that as a way to bring characters together instead of the tavern. But even then, it's that you're still talking about two or three or four gimmicks that people are using, versus in other games like Invisible Sun or like Traveler or whatever, um, a whole host of potential ideas.
Well, and nothing says you can't bring those other ideas into the game itself.
I don't disagree at all. It's just something that not many people do, and for whatever reason, I'm not quite sure Why
it's easy.
well, you can say that, and it might even be true. I don't know. I don't know if it's easiness. I don't know if it's laziness, or if it's baked into the system somehow.
The thing is that especially with fantasy, right? Since we're talking about D&D, the big thing with the fantasy trope is that if you tell somebody they're in a tavern, the mental image is going to come across the same. You're going to expect wooden floors, wooden chairs, wooden tables, a wooden bar, maybe a few bottles, but most of what's going to be behind the bar is kegs. And there's either going to be the grumpy, surly barkeep or the bubbly, cheerful barkeep or the two barkeeps that are married, and one of them's grumpy and surly, and the other one's burly and cheerful, and you wonder why they're together, and then you find out that they're and it's the same. It's like a shopping list almost. You got your tavern, you've got your crew, and you almost always know the same people that are going to be in it. If it's a small town, you can expect farmers. You can expect
There's a farrier, there's a blacksmith, there's whatever.
And then in a bigger town, all right, you put the tavern by the docks. What have you got? Sailors. You put it by the gates. You've got merchants. It's very much it's very much a non.
It's formulaic.
You have A B C D E, and for a lot of people, it's a lot easier because for a lot of people, me included, it's not a matter of where the story starts, but where is the journey taking you?
That's an interesting thought. I like the way you said that. Where's the journey taking you? And that kind of setting that up is kind of the crux for the next portion of our discussion, right? So for anybody just joining us, welcome to the lounge. We're talking TTRPGs today. We're talking player characters, motivations, and making parties that work together, making characters that work together. But we want to answer your questions. So if you have any questions, if you have something that you think of or want to join the discussion, drop it in chat. We'll work with you live because that's why we're here. We want to help you with your game. We can do our own. So.
All right, but yeah, that's for a lot of people. It is like that, right? So let's talk about characters.
Hey,
And hi, Anthony. How you been? Long time no talkie.
So we're talking about player characters and putting together parties that work together by design. And so rolling into session 0.
And no, we're not necessarily talking about the paladin, the cleric, the fighter, the rogue, all of that. We're not talking mechanically. We're talking role play wise. ROLE play, not necessarily ROLL play. Just so that we've got clarification out there.
That works. So talking about session 0, have a discussion about what a fleshed out party is going to look like. So your players have built their characters, or they're building their characters together, and that's fine. That's a good start. But understand who those characters are, and have them understand who those characters are, right? So imagine for a second a party with um, three socialites and a Batman. Okay, and it's a terrible example, but um, if you can imagine how hard it's going to be to get that Batman, the Broody McBroods a lot, um, to to come around and actually cooperate with the party, um, organically.
without
Imagine,
needing to adopt everybody and his brother.
yeah, without needing to adopt everybody's brother. So, have that conversation in a session zero and say, look, you want to play this kind of character, that's fine. I mean, there's lots of different ways that I can think of that something like that would work. But ask the question, look, what is going to motivate Mr. Batman or Mr. Broody McBroods a lot, or whoever, right, to work with the other members of the party, in such a way that you can advance the story to a point where, um, maybe there's some character development and he stops being Broody McBroods a lot, or something good happens and he turns a corner or whatever, right? You want the characters and the players to be thinking along those lines and understand their characters well enough to be able to say, oh, this is potentially problematic, or I need to spend and focus on this relationship with this other player so that down the road we can set this up in a story somehow and make this whole thing work, make this party work together, make this story interesting for everybody, and not an exercise in frustration for the three trying to make this one, work with them.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have giggled, but it made me think of that scene from Deadpool with the. So anybody that hasn't seen Deadpool, spoiler alert! If you have seen Deadpool, the scene that I'm talking about is when he's on the bridge talking to teenage Mega Sonic Warhead with
Oh,
the whole scene. So what's it gonna be? Long sullen silence or snarky comment?
yeah.
And that is a concern if you're running around with a player that only wants to be the Lone Ranger or Batman or you know I had some difficulties when Josh was playing the antisocial goober butt. It was hard because it was like, okay, what's going to motivate him to get involved? And so we sat down and we had to map out how his interactions were going to go and how he was going to move forward through this story and gradually allow these people in. His backstory was fine, right? His backstory gave perfect reason why he was that way, but he still needed to move beyond that to be part of the group to where there was group cohesion. Because one of the biggest reasons that I've seen in my many, many years of running and playing is the biggest reason why a group will fall apart is because there's not cohesion. There's not, why are they together? Why are they working together? Why are they doing this? I mean, yeah, sure, you're going to have the occasional asshole that you're going to play with, but a lot of times it does come down to why are the players' characters involved?
Well, and it's not even just the play, right? It's why does a campaign fall apart? The campaign falls apart for the same reason. It's because you've got this group that either doesn't want to work together or can't work together, and all of a sudden, all of the external reasons that, um, are trying to prod at them to act don't matter.
I will also point out that trying to run two separate games in a single session sucks and is a lot of work on the GM. So if you're going to play that Lone Ranger McBroody face, McBroods, you want to actually talk to your GM first, because I have personally cut people from my games because they kept wanting to run off to do their own thing, leaving the rest of the party hanging to the point where it was, and then they'd get upset because I would focus my attention on the main group rather than giving them their own little offset. I mean, and that is one of the things that I really like about Invisible Sun, is that when you want to do that individual stuff, Invisible Sun offers side sessions, and so, or side scenes. So when I start running my Midgard game, I will be also offering side scenes to where people that want to go do stuff that they don't want to take up the main game area with, like maybe role play shopping or spending time with their quote unquote families, will be able to do that without it interrupting everybody else's fun time.
Yeah, I love the idea behind development sessions. I love the way it's not even just, okay, now we have to find time to get together, right? It can be as simple as a text conversation, or it can be as simple as a conversation over Discord or something like that. It doesn't have to be anything major, any big production. And role playing doesn't have to be complicated, and that's, quite frankly, that's a pretty awesome perspective.
And you're right, Anthony. That's exactly what you have to do. Is when they want to do non-cohesive characters, they need to think about what's best for the group, not necessarily just for what's best for their individual character.
That leads to another concept that we've kind of grown to espouse, is character bonds, and not just the superficial. Um, this person is this person's relative or something like that, or whatever, but deep, varied character bonds, like um, old friends, or professional, uh, friendly rivals, or um, needed allies. So, if you're an alchemist, then maybe your bond is with another party member that's a herbalist. That you kind of have to have both if you're in alchemy, right? So there's all kinds of other ways to do it that go beyond the simple that you can look for and incorporate in your games.
Yeah, I really don't like that what my character would do mentality. That annoys the crap out of me when people, but it's what my character would do.
Well,
Like seriously?
okay, I'm gonna disagree with you here. I have no problem with the what my character would do mentality. I have a problem with the I'm going to bring in a character that's intentionally not going to function well with the other characters in the party, and then hide behind that as an excuse. I have no problem taking on characters that aren't me. Um, I have no problem taking on characters that aren't me and doing things that metagame I know are a bad idea, but that the character would do because the character doesn't know it's a bad idea for the sake of story. Let's take Acto. All right. Acto was dumb that way. He was funny as hell, but he made all kinds of tactically unwise choices because he didn't know any better. That didn't mean I didn't know any better. I've been playing for 35 years. I knew what I was doing was dumb, but he was a young, brash barbarian that thought he was a bear, and he's a halfling. I mean, what are you going to do if you're going to play the guy the way he's supposed to be played? Then he's going to make dumb decisions. So that's what my character would do.
Yeah, but think about what you said. You know, this for story's sake.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big difference between doing what your character would do for story's sake or group narrative than being a dick.
Absolutely, there is. I'm not disagreeing with you.
So my issue with the whole what my character would do mentality is when they come in and they intentionally be dicks and use the my character. That's what my character would do. That's how my character would act. That's what my character thinks. That's how my character would say it. No, your character is not going to mouth off to a fucking dragon and expect to walk away alive.
Well, or back when alignment was the big thing, right? Chaotic neutral was always called chaotic stupid, and the reason is because in theory you could never tell what they were going to do because it was halfway between good and bad, and chaotic was whatever I feel like. But at the same time, there's going to be a modicum of self-preservation there that, okay, I'm a level, I hate using these metagame terms, but I'm a level 2 thief. I'm not going to just walk up and pick the pocket of a 300-year-old demi-lich and expect that everything's going to be kosher because that's what my character would do. I'm not that stupid. That's like, here, kill me.
Okay, look, it was just the one time. Well, no, my character didn't actually. This was Shadowrun, and we were playing a round of Harlequin Returns. If anybody's ever actually played that, Shadowrun produced a couple of adventures based on a character named Harlequin, which was somebody's baby character. I Yeah, that was somebody's baby character.
His name was Tom Dowd. Yes, that was his baby character.
And Harlequin was made out, and part of it was also to include aspects and thoughts about Earth Dawn. But basically, the entire thing about Harlequin was a bunch of. He was a douche canoe. He was a complete, unmitigated asshole. The character that I was playing was a troll. So, not very smart because in Shadowrun, they get negatives to their intelligence because they're not smart, they're just huge. Who, and her big thing is that she collected old comics. So she walked up to Harlequin, and anybody that's actually seen a picture of Harlequin knows what Harlequin looks like, and asked for him to sign her Batman comics that introduced Harley Quinn.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it was. She got her character. She got her comics signed, but he was not happy with her.
That's impressive, actually. I'm not gonna lie. That's pretty impressive.
I think the only reason why my character didn't die an ugly, horrible death was because the GM was too busy laughing their ass off.
Well, heck, I would have been. I mean, that's about as inventive of a interaction with that particular character as I'd have ever heard. So yeah, it comes back to having that discussion beforehand. If you want if you want cohesion, you have to plan for it. And it's not that difficult to explain to a group that the game's going to be more fun when everybody works together. Um,
There you go. A picture of Harlequin.
that's what Harlequin looks like.
I'm trying to remember that not everybody is as Shadowrun affectionate as we are.
Well, and the hard thing is, he's a perfect example, right? So you talked earlier about my character Deadbolt, right, and how the backstory showed why Deadbolt was the way he was, and how we tooled around with it and tooled around with the campaign and plotted some things out to, I don't want to say force, but to guide um, his emotional development in a particular direction. If you look at the backstory to Harlequin, there's a good reason that Harlequin's the asshole that Harlequin is. There's a really good reason. But at the same time, it's like he doesn't change. There's no emotional development. There's no turning the corner. Even when he takes on Frosty as his apprentice, he doesn't stop being an asshole. She just is there to apologize and smooth things over for him.
Well, also, how much of that is because Tom Dowd isn't working on Harlequin anymore?
That could be. I mean, when FASA's properties got purchased before they reorganized later on, and Shadowrun changed hands, yeah, that he stopped working on it, and it became, actually, that was Adam Jury's crew. That was fourth edition.
Yeah, so which would make sense, but if you look at a lot, I'm going to throw this out there. If you look at a lot of the Shadowrun big name IPs, Lawfare, Harlequin has to be
Dunkelzahn.
Dunkelzahn. Well, Dunkelzahn's dead. Ghostwalker, all these big names. There's no growth with them because they basically Shadowrun dropped the ball. They've dropped the ball on Shadowrun. There's no growth. There's only give us more money to buy our books.
Yeah. Hey, Jason. Good to see you. Glad you could join us. Um, I'll tell you the same thing we tell everybody. Feel free to drop questions in chat. We'll answer them live because that's why we're here.
Dude, the rule set's crazy insane.
It
I'm
is.
just gonna drop that.
Neither. Well, back in the day when we didn't know any better, Shadowrun wasn't so bad. But
Look, I haven't liked Shadowrun since 4th edition.
that's what I mean. Like way back, third, fourth, second edition, we didn't know any better. There wasn't really anything better out there, or simpler, or that flowed better, like a Forged in the Dark, or like a Cipher, or like whatever. Right? There weren't those different options like we've got today. So, comparing it and saying the rule set was bad back then, it was
It was
rule
still
set. It was still bad, but nobody knew.
Look, the only rule set that was worse than Shadowrun was GURPS. So yeah, but yeah, the lore. But the Shadowrun lore is just like it is with D&D. There's so much time and money invested in the lore that it is phenomenal and it's engaging. And but then they started trying to add in the bits and pieces from Earthbound, and it was just or Earth Dawn, not Earthbound. That was different. That's a different game, but Earth Dawn. But and Earth Dawn just was sad.
Earth Dawn rubbed me the wrong way.
It was like they attempted to make a cyberpunk post-apocalyptic world and just dropped the ball.
Either that or some kind of D&D competitor using Shadowrun.
And they dropped the ball.
And they dropped the ball.
But I do love the lore of Shadowrun. I think the only thing I never liked about the lore of Shadowrun was we need another bad guy. Here's another dragon.
Yeah. But, like you said, through about 4th edition, the whole story, the whole Earth development was really kind of cool. You can say the same thing about Cyberpunk 2020. I mean, Artel Sorian put boatloads of hours in supplements and trying to make that as logical of and tight of a story as anything out there, and they did a phenomenal job.
I still like Low Life better.
Yes, for Cyberpunk, if we're gonna play a Cyberpunk game at the moment, Low Life 2090 is the game. So, Steve Grodzicki and Pickpocket Games, you kick ass. I'm sorry.
Let's see, we've covered Lone Ranger characters. And what else do we talk about? All right, guys, do you have any questions, comments, thoughts? Cricket.
Drum roll, please.
I mean, but going back to your statement about the chaotic neutral, I have played a perfectly fine chaotic neutral character.
So have I.
I've known other people like that kid that was playing the chaotic neutral when I was doing the teenager game. He was playing that chaotic neutral.
Which one?
The skinny little dude that was in classes with Rachel. Not.
Oh, Dad was the college professor. Yes. Yes.
I do not comprehend Vert. The feathers just kind of throw me off. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just something that's causing my brain to clutch on that, but it's just the feathers throw me off. I don't comprehend it. Maybe, you know what, Anthony? Maybe you should put together a group and run a game of Vert for us. How do you like that? Huh? Show us what you like about Vert.
That'd be awesome. And from what I've read about Vert, and I won't lie, I haven't read the entire source book, but I've read a chunk of it. What strikes me about Vert is the fact that they seem to take cyberpunk from a game standpoint and say, all right, cyberpunk is dealing damage and lethality. And so, damage is doubled and, all that crap. And don't get me wrong, it's lethal. But I guess for both Joanne and I, when we think about cyberpunk, we end up comparing it to Shadowrun. And that's just where we come from. but at the same time, um, the thing that gets us about a cyberpunk type atmosphere is not just the lethality. It's when we talked about it between the two of us, we talked about like Shadowrun's concept of notoriety and
Heat.
heat, and the idea that um, you've got these forces of government, these forces of corporation, these forces of monolithic, I'm going to come down and I'm going to crush your ass, that are out there, and you're the little guy. You're the one that's fighting, quote unquote, the man, and the man's got all the guns, and the man's got all the soldiers, and the man's got all the money and the power, and you're just like this little peon against him or her or whatever, right? And so there's no, in Vert that I saw, there's no real way to represent this, oh my goodness, I got to stay out of the spotlight or I'm going to die kind of fear. There's no way to represent, um if I'm not careful, I'm going to have, five different corporations show up at my door and nuke the place kind of caution, you know? It's just, here, let me throw some extra damage at you, which, it's a design choice, right? That's the way these things work. But that was something that when we looked at it, we were like, this doesn't feel quite right. This doesn't do what we think a cyberpunk game ought to do to create that kind of atmosphere.
Well, yeah. Outside of the feathers, I didn't have a lot of problems with the cyberpunk aspect. It was just the feathers that were kind of like, the huh? That, but um, but as Josh said, one of the big things that we've noticed with a lot of games, especially Monte Cook games, is the fact that they've gone mechanicalized enough to where you have to add mechanics if you want to get the right flavor, as Josh said, with the heat.
And
How much danger are you in? If you're a criminal, which in Shadowrun you are, hence the name that you're a shadow runner. If you're a criminal, that means getting attention from big boys means dead bodies.
and don't get us wrong, Jason and you both know we love Minecraft games, right? We love Cipher System, we love all that, and even Monty made a design choice to go that rules light, and that's okay. It works for a very lot of things, um, but it just doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't strike me as able to bring to pass a mechanically oppressive enough setting to go cyberpunk for me.
Well, that's why I kind of suggested you run us a game, Ant, is because you can show us what you see. Because I'll learn it better and I'll understand it better from somebody else's viewpoint if they run it for me.
And I'll be the first to admit that let's face it, I don't get everything, so I'm totally okay with missing stuff. Show me what I'm missing.
That and it'll be fun to play with you again.
There is that too. All right, so Let's see. We've talked about player characters. We've talked about motivation and finding other motivators other than like killing things um, to generate player actions like character arcs, like awarding experience for non-combat things, like milestone leveling, like all that. We've talked about building intentional character groups that function together by design. Um, and it's 55 minutes in, so let's see. Do we have any last minute questions or things you guys want to discuss? Ooh, hey, welcome. We appreciate you being here. I'd rather run a Shadowrun versus straight Cyberpunk, and I'd rather run Cypher Shadowrun versus straight Shadowrun, in my humble opinion. If I could get, I haven't found an adaptation that makes Cypher Shadowrun feel like Shadowrun, but if I could find one, I would totally play Cypher Shadowrun.
Well, we have that one adaptation.
I I don't know that does it either, and that's the thing.
I think somebody's just being picky.
I yeah, but I'm an old gamer and I'm an old geezer, and that's what we do is we're picky. But no, I agree with you. I would totally rather play Cipher than something super top heavy like a Shadowrun or something like that. That's I totally agree with you. Well, he says right.
Why are you looking at me?
We might be working on a system. Yes.
He's
Yeah.
not quite that bad, but he does get a little bit
I
grr.
don't have a porch swing yet, and I'm not to the point where I'm taking a shotgun to the post or the postman. But yeah,
And the minute you do, I'm gonna beat your ass. Anyway.
Shakes deep buddies and clowns. I love it.
Well, see, that's the only thing that I have the issue with with the cipher system is so much of it's dependent on the D20, but at the same time, I don't want a bathtub full of D6s because I've been there. I've got like a container full of D6s over there that was from my Shadowrun days, and they're colored, right? So the ones are all colored red, and then the five or sixes are all colored in with black, to where when I roll them, I just count up the blacks or the reds, and I can ignore the rest. But yes, I do. I like the Shadowrun lore. I like, yeah, I like this. I like the, what is it, a handout? We got a thing where somebody had taken and made Shadowrun Cipher, but it still didn't include the heat. So, I mean, technically, we could probably just take that and include the heat.
We could try and.
Well, it's not that hard. Just do it with one. Just do it through a 1 through 10 level, where if they don't get a lot of notice, include heat and street notoriety, because it's one of the big things that Shadowrun had was the
Force
heat.
a check. Yeah, you could force a check in downtime or something, and do a 1 to 10 level. I guess that would work.
Yeah, I was very excited when Roll20 came out and I could type in the D6s, but um yeah, with I had the D6s because until Roll20 came out, I don't. It showed up in 4th edition and is in 5th and 6th edition. It's part of the rules of heat. Yes, it's a post 2E thing. It's part of the rule, like how much attention you got. Like if you went in and attacked Ares' area and left a whole bunch of dead bodies, that gave you heat, as in you were noticed. And
They had two different types, right? So you had heat, which was the bad kind of notice. So if Corpse noticed you, if Knight Errant noticed you, if Lone Star noticed you, you got heat. The other was notoriety. And that was if you gained notice in the shadow community. And that was a mixed bag. So if.
Also known as street cred.
Street cred, yep. So if you had high street cred, you could potentially get more lucrative jobs. But at the same time, if you got street cred and too much heat, it also meant that you were too noisy as a shadow runner, and people wouldn't offer you jobs. So that interplay was kind of a thing there too.
And sometimes when you get a DM that's tired of your shit, they have an Ares Death Squad show up.
Or Cthulhu and Power Armor.
But yeah, I believe it was a post 2E thing. I recall it showing up in 4th edition, and
I probably didn't take a hard enough look at Anarchy. We have it. We have the PDF, but I don't know that I actually took a hard enough look at it.
What about that one that we played with that the other day? The one that we played on Thursday or Tuesday night with
Oh, Vast Grim.
That one was kind of cool.
Yeah, so we played. We had somebody from the server. Jason, is it Jason? Is that right? Yes, it's a Mort Borg type RPG, and neither one of us had ever played anything from Mort Borg. James. It was James from the server. He's from Australia, and he took us on a one shot through Vast Grim, and that was a really interesting experience. From the standpoint of the game itself and the mechanics, I could totally see running like con one shots in Mort Borg a lot. It seems like it would lend itself really, really well to quick prep and then running a con one shot with it. The setting itself is probably not my cup of tea. It's more Joanne's. It's very much a space horror kind of post-apocalyptic meets aliens, like James Cameron aliens, meets fringe kind of Firefly end of the universe kind of stuff. And it was okay. But yeah, the actual system itself was kind of interesting, and with as much the community building like mods off of it and stuff like that, there's bound to be something worth playing. I guess they've gotten I want to say I saw a tweet yesterday that they'd gotten like 1,000 mods for Mork Borg since they released it a year ago or something. I mean, people are just going crazy with this game system.
I had lots of fun. But then again, I like, weird creatures and zombies and shit, so. And James did a really good job of DMing it. I enjoyed playing with him. It was nice to not be sitting in the DM's chair.
It was. It was a blast. We really, really appreciated him running that for us.
That is a good idea, Anth. I might have to think about that. Consider that idea yoinked. Hey, I'm a game designer. I steal things just fine.
Steal it like you bought it. Yeah, that was the other thing that kind of half bothered us is the design of the rule book, right? It made it really so with Joanne being the designer of the two of us, she's really picky, but more to the point, she has a hard time reading odd design choices from an actual reading standpoint. I don't have as big of a problem, but even I was struggling with it a little bit.
Well, and it wasn't so much the way they designed it. So the big thing about this book was the fact that a lot of the text was kind of tilted weird angles, which isn't that big of a deal, but it was the color on color choices. In some cases it was white on black, in some cases it was this weird hyper orange on, what was it, red?
Yeah.
The coloration was just meh.
And they bill it as a designer RPG, and I get it, right? I mean, there's people that love weird design like that, and great, more power to them. The community's huge, and go for it. But art, yes, I've heard that as well. Art punk RPG, and it seems very much like it. Like if you look at the original Mork Borg, it's all freaking yellow and black, and it hurts my eyes looking at it.
Great, thanks. Now I'm gonna have that song stuck in my head the rest of the night.
What song?
There was a, oh Jesus, no. There was a song back, oh fuck, when was it? It was called Black and Yellow. It was like a rap metal song type thing.
Alrighty. As you go look it up.
It was by Wiz Khalifa.
Oh, that's enough.
Yeah, you know what it is.
I remember
Everything I do it big. Black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow.
Right.
I'm hip. I'm with it. I mean, sure, sometimes I don't know what it is anymore, but I used to be with it.
Yeah, it's a lot harder to be with it anymore, I guess. We're getting old. That's all right.
Yeah, 2010. That's how old it is. Crap, are you serious? Glow in the dark ink? Well, I can't really say anything bad because the cable for my phone, because I have an iPhone, the cable for my so the cable for my iPhone is glow in the dark because when I get up to go in the bathroom at night, I like to have my phone with me, and so I need to be able to plug it back in without turning on the light because somebody growls at me if I turn on the light.
I don't know who that is.
You know damn well who it is. I can buy that. And sometimes I want to buy these books in hardcover just so that I have them, right? Because I'm very much the collector of the two of us, and that I think that'd be kind of funny. Just have it set up on the wall with glow in the dark ink.
And the funny thing is, the older I get, the less the less of a problem I have with collecting it. But at the same time, I still struggle buying something that I'm not going to actually use. Like, we've got a ton of hard copies, right? I mean, I've got two Blades in the Dark, I've got two Scum and Villainy, I've got two Ciphers, I've got two sets of Numenera and Destiny. I've because we'll play those, right? I've got hard copies of Star Wars. I've got hard copies of Low Fantasy Gaming. I've got hard copies of Arc and other stuff that we've gotten off of our Kickstarter, and even games that are adjacent, right? So we backed Relic by Bandit Camp, and they did Wicked Ones, and so I bought that in hard copy. We backed Ironsworn Starforged, and then I went and bought Ironsworn and Ironsworn Delve in hardback. So I mean, it's not like I'm against getting these hardcover books or anything. It's just I look at Mork Borg and I'm thinking it's kind of cool, but I don't know when I'd ever play it. And I struggle pulling the trigger on stuff like that. And sometimes she's all, go ahead and buy it anyway. And sometimes it's go ahead and buy it anyway, and we end up playing it. Like, oh, I don't know, there was this one $250 purchase that happened once that has become my favorite game since.
Look, if you're gonna sit there and complain about things that we bought that we're not playing, I can name a book that's out there that you bought that we're not going to play, and we're probably never going to play.
Which one?
Aeon Trinity. Oh
I
snap!
still want
There
to
it
play
is.
that. I still want to play the original Eon Trinity.
Yeah, so we were at a game store in Detroit because we're in Michigan. We were at a game store in Detroit, and they had copies of
Old supplements.
For Aeon Trinity, and he was wanting them really bad, and was pouting because he didn't think it was a good idea to buy them. And I made him go ahead and buy them because it was like a month and a half before his birthday.
Dude, the whole idea behind that setting and that system, it's another one that has this really badass lore that is just a ton of fun to look at. And I keep thinking about how awesome it would be to play these scions. And then there's other stuff that has to happen. There's other stuff that takes up our time. But out of all the storyteller games, that's the one that I could see myself actually playing on a regular basis if I had to pick one.
And don't forget all the BattleTech stuff we've got now.
We'll play that as soon as we can have a place to actually um, leave stuff up.
Yeah, that's gonna be time. I've got a feeling that one of these days we're going to have our house, and then we're going to have the gaming house.
Hush.
Gaming house.
Heck yeah, we'll play BattleTech with you, Gonza. That was actually after D&D. That was my first game. I had a next door neighbor that had the original black box BattleTech, and um, introduced me to uh, first edition MechWarrior as well.
Yeah, we picked up the BattleTech starter kit and I started playing it and I enjoyed it. Um, it's a little more it's not as complicated as I expected, but at the same time it's a little more complicated than I expected. So, but it's easier to know than ASL.
It is easier than ASL. Yeah, yeah. Josh is an old Avalon Hill hex encounter freak. So
But you're cute and we love you.
hey, still it's something you can do with them, you know.
Yeah, I I wish we started playing video games together, and we play Raft with my youngest occasionally, uh, which is nice. It's nice to have something to do with them. I don't know anybody like that.
Who? What? Where?
We went to Aslock and he sat down and he played for like 4 hours.
So yeah, there is a tournament in Cleveland, Ohio, every year in October. It's 10 days. It's the largest tournament in the world for this board game called Advanced Squad Leader by Avalon Hill, now by Multiman Publishing. And the games almost universally start at about 4 hours and go up. There are some that are multi-day. You know, I mean, it's crazy. But
Like that one weird one. So like they've got these really big. This dude was on like a 10-foot long folding table.
Oh God, yes.
And he spent and he spent the entire first day. They spent the entire first day just doing setup for this game.
Yep.
And then so they spent the entire day. They got it all set up, and then the following day they actually started playing. But this thing was so big that they would play for half the day and then set up again because more troops would be coming in and stuff like that. And it was like, you guys are freaking nuts.
Yeah, that game lasted 7 days. I talked to the guys afterwards. Derek won.
Okay, look, I would no, and yes, or as bad as Warhammer. Like some of those Warhammer people, they're like nuts. Like, oh my god. But yeah, or Dust.
Oh, that's another one. Yeah, that's big up here because the guy that made it is he Ohio or Michigan?
I think he's Ohio.
Yeah, so he lives in Ohio and will go around the state and hit the gaming stores and run demos and tournaments and stuff like that.
But yes, some of these miniature wargaming people
They're insane.
They're insane. Like, so I started playing Warhammer when I lived in Austin. Um, I was mid to early 20s. Yeah, yeah, it is. And I had one dude have a complete epic meltdown because he argued with me for 45 minutes about the distance of 6 inches. Because I said X was 6 inches, and he said, no, this is 6 inches. And we ended up having to get a third guy to come over, get out his tape measure, and then this guy just had this complete screaming, flip the table meltdown because my 6 inches was actually 6 inches.
Seamstress.
Yeah, you know. And he flipped the table and he stormed off, and he was just, and this dude was at least in his 50s because he had all gray hair and he was just having this epic meltdown. And I'm just watching and I'm like, so we know why he's still single.
So yeah, that's miniature gaming too. We do a lot of weird stuff, you know.
Hey, look, it beats. I'm gonna say this, and it's gonna sound horrible, but at least it's not as bad as the one guy that I played MTG against. So I
Oh,
was in
jeez.
Austin, and we were playing Friday Night Magic, and I don't know if most people probably played or know what Friday Night Magic is. It's basically you sit down, you play tournament Magic. So I'm playing against this one guy, and I'm in my mid to late 20s at this point, and he's, mid to early 20s, right? Because he was definitely younger than me because he still had the baby face and the little fine whiskers, but he was older than a teenager because Austin had curfew. Um, so he's sitting there and we're playing, and he ends up having this epic meltdown and eats his magic cards. Like he just takes and starts shoving them in his mouth and just and it was like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Whoa.
And then he got really mad because he's sitting there and he's got this big wad of, paper in his mouth because it was magic cards. And I asked him, do you need some hot sauce? Because there's hot sauce over there. And he just kind of glares at me and stomps off. So, needless to say, I've had some interesting encounters.
That so we've been together now for 5 years and have known each other for like 8 or 9 now. And I still keep learning new stories about why I should never go to Austin. Her cleavage was cheating the industry. You know, people like that need to be taken out and beaten. I'm sorry. I just I'm gonna step out and say it. It the reason women don't want to go in gaming is because of stupid people like that. And I can't say that I blame them. I wouldn't want to put up with that either. You know? I mean, come on, guys. We can do better than that.
I'm a terrible, no good, very bad person. Yes, I've experienced that because I used to wear tighter clothes and bras all the time that gave me cleavage because, I'm not exactly a small built woman. And I did have a guy complain about my cleavage to the judge. So the following time that I showed up, I had put googly eyes all over my chest. So, yeah, I mean, sometimes if somebody's going to complain about the way you're dressed, you got to own it. And I'm sorry she felt she had that happen to her though. I would eh, yeah, I do. Like that's the other thing, we we didn't used to judge, and now we're like, let's hand out soap and deodorant. Yeah, it is getting better. I will state that the gaming community is gradually getting better. There are still some people that need to grow, like you said, grow up and roll dice. But what can we do? I mean, other than keep pushing forward. because I stand by my statement. If you don't welcome new people to play, your hobby's going to die. There's no other way to put it. You're going to run out of people that are going to buy stuff.
That's right. And anything that the older group can do to promote getting younger people into the hobby and making it inclusive is something that's good for everybody. So, go out, teach a newbie how to play role playing games, um, and enjoy the heck out of it.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a game and about having fun with friends. Yeah, exactly. Um, I know Dungeons and Dragons is making some changes. Who else? Peso has made some changes. Shadowrun has made changes. It's very much what people don't understand is that the hobby games that we play that we love are very much consumer driven. If it's not being bought, they're going to change it until somebody does buy.
Absolutely. So on that note, it is we're coming up at an hour and a half, which it's been a good discussion. It's been good to see Gonza. It's good to see you. It's good to see Anthony and Jason. I know you're not there anymore, but it was good to see you too while you were here. Um, if you like what we do and you wanna support us, follow us here on Twitter or Twitch, whatever. Um, Come subscribe to our YouTube channel where we'll post all this stuff as soon as we can after the stream's over. And chase us around the internet. There's our link tree in the chat. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on MeWe. We have a Patreon that's actually got stuff that you can use now for just our subscribers. So there's that. We have a store that you can have merch. We have hoodies and tumblers and phone cases and other cool stuff. And as always, stop by our website at angelcitadel.com. We do weekly reviews of new gaming or new games, things we find cool. And other than that, you can find us on Discord and chat with us there. But from our Citadel to yours, happy gaming.
Happy gaming.